In a modern context, the word ostracize means to exclude someone from a group or from society. But in ancient Athens, ostracism was an actual political practice. The whole city could just vote to kick you out. Let's explain that with a bit more detail. The first important factor is that during this time period, the 5th century BC, Athens was a democracy. For an ostracism to be performed, the majority of citizens, so only free adult men, had to vote in favor of the ceremony taking place. Then, at a later date, the actual event would take place, where everyone would line up and cast their votes. You could vote for anyone, and whoever got the most votes, just one guy, would be banished from the city for 10 years. Of course, it's not like random dudes were getting enough votes to be ostracized. Of the handful of people banished, they were all rich and powerful figures who had no trouble surviving until they could return. So why were these guys being kicked out of the city? Well, there are a variety of possibilities. It could be that they were gaining too much power and were seen as a threat to democracy. Popular figures could be banished, giving time for their power to wane. Yet, it could also be used against people just because others didn't like what you had to say. A rich guy complaining against infrastructure construction? Bye-bye. Be super wealthy and possibly cheat on your wife? Megacles the adulterer. See ya. Abuse of the system was mitigated by the fact that a maximum of only one person per year could be ostracized, and indeed, most years nobody was banished. Of course, this was still a pretty serious affair. If you were banished, you had 10 days to leave, and then you faced the death penalty. Anyway, it's called ostracism because the pieces of pottery that the votes were inscribed on were called ostraca. When we examine the archaeological evidence of these ostraca, we find something interesting. A lot of the pottery shards seem to be inscribed by the same individuals. This could mean that central figures were distributing them to the voters in a campaign against particular candidates, or they were just sold to the illiterate so they could cast their votes. Isn't kicking rich people out of their home for 10 years on the threat of death, all by popular vote, just a delightfully fun historical activity? I'm History with Dino. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you'd like to support me, and like this video, and I will see you next week with another one.